Okay, my friends, we're going to talk about how paleontologists missed the decades-old mystery surrounding the devil's corkscrews. And they're these little screws that they find in the ground, and they've just been fighting over how they were accomplished. Now, there's a ton of things they miss because they refuse to examine what is put in front of them, and that is mud fossils. Mud fossils has changed everything, and they need to change accordingly. All right, they claim they have decoded how this has happened, and they have totally missed everything. Now, this is by Ken MacDonald, January 21st, 2020. They're still talking about that they have figured it out. These are these corkscrews, and they find them right next to hairs. You're going to say, oh, what is this? Corkscrews and hairs. Well, guess what? Those are sweat glands, and they are hairs. And I will show you, because I have looked into this closely, and that is exactly what they are. Okay, this is what we're seeing around the world. You're seeing these sweat glands, and then you're seeing hairs. Simple as that. And here they are. Here's this guy cleaning around these devil's corkscrews, they call them. And they're taking the kids out saying, oh, little animals did this or whatever, some silly explanations, because they will not look at my explanations. And I confronted the people that are making these statements just within the last year or two, absolutely refuse to engage. When they're wrong, they just hide out. Now, here's what it says right here. It's the fragment of a corkscrew with its root. And this is exactly what they're finding, is the sweat glands right next to the hair. That's the root of the hair. And this is Crowley Lake again. And again, they're saying these are from burrows of animals. They're not, it's hair. All right, remember this kind of clay. This is the kaolin clay. When that starts to erode and mat down, it makes that kaolin clays. They're powdery when they dry out. And of course we saw the hair sticking out of them in forests like that. Okay, these are basically skin colors, and they use these particular clays to make fine chinas. And for mud baths, they use them for skin conditioners. They're very, receptive. And they work well with skin chemistry because that's what they are. And once you moisturize them, they moisturize you. That's why these mud baths seem to work well. It's the same kind of chemistry. All right, there again, you can see it overlaps. Now, as these erode, of course, these things will round off a little bit. All right, this is hair. Now, that is the very fine skin on the thin skin areas. Now, I don't think this is a human being because I don't see any sweat glands here. And human beings, I believe, have sweat glands everywhere near their hairs. Wherever the hairs are, I believe there are also sweat glands. Now, I could be wrong about that, and this could be a special spot where there is no sweat glands, like, I don't know where there is no sweat glands, but the black and the red is indicative of vein blood, which is normally in us it's blue, but in mud fossils, it's black, and it's black and it would be black for us too if we bled out on the floor, and there'll be red blood and there'll be black blood. It's exactly what happens. Any corn knows this. There's no question about this whatsoever. This is the colors of blood. This is the stripes that hair create. This is the clay, which is the skin clays that are resident in fine skins. Let me show you. All right, as hard as it is to believe, that is a hair, and that is the kaolin clay, and that's the hair growing up out of it. There's another one here. They erode away, and that isn't even as big as they get. They get bigger. I'm sorry, that's a fact. I just want to mention that a lot of these sites that you see like this, when you see these kind of clusters of what they call eroded trees. Sometimes they're actually here. All right, this is the kaolin clay, and that's a red blood spot. Now, and they all have it. There's going to be blood here and there in it. The blood always retains its color. The red always keeps some rusty-looking color of red. Now, the black turns black. All right, this is kaolin too. This is yellow kaolin. All right, and I'll show you that kaolin in a second. But right here, I cut it. This is the artery, and that's the vein. You can see it running out of there. I wetted it a little bit so that it was a little more obvious. But the red blood, and you see that's the black blood. Or in this case, it's dark brown. But it's obvious the two different ones. Now, in addition to that, right here, you see this? Right there. That is, I believe, the vein. Now, you see the crystal shape of that? That's like the hex shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It surrounds them in a crystalline shape. And that's what happens to blood. That's the really only place where the blood is. See? That spot right there is where the blood is just sort of crystallizing out. And that's how crystals form. That's why we find, you know, different types of, these type of things, crystals, that form, because this is a toe. And they leak out, and they leak blood out of it, and they make crystals. There's one right here, that's garnets. In this particular case, they're red, and sometimes they're different colors. It depends on what the chemistry was when they started to crystallize. It's really not all that hard to understand, but it's beyond what the average mind is willing to accept. Let's go with that. And that is the microscopic shot of a sweat gland. Going down inside there is the sweat gland, and it spews out amongst the kaolin clay, which is the skin. All right, when they find crystals like this, that's loaded with lead. It's called wolfenite, and I believe that is sweat. It's crystallized. It's just the way it is. Everything's got to turn to something. Okay, my good friends, until you begin to deal with reality, you are just babbling on of what someone tells you to say. You're just repeating. That is a hair. This is flesh. This is the root of the hair, the vein and the artery. And you say, oh, Roger, how can I make these crazy statements? Well, I'm saying this is flesh, and that is blood that ran out from an artery, which is right here. There's the artery. There's where it came from. This is flesh. That was red blood that serviced that flesh. Now, I'm going to make a plea for help to expose this, because I'm destroyed. Nobody will put my stuff out there. I keep getting shut down. Right now, I can't post on any groups on Facebook because people keep complaining. They don't want to see this stuff. It's too much for them. And that's what this guy says. Weapons of mass instruction. This is 15 years ago, and he was talking about this 20 years before that, and he is an educator. And I'm going to tell you something. I shouldn't say this, but I am gonna. I have a relative who is a PhD, psychiatrist, psychologist, teaches, and also has a practice, and thinks I am literally insane, and will not look at anything that I present for years and years now. This is a member of my own family. Now, my family's quite educated. They feel very satisfied with their intelligence levels, and none of them will look at anything I'm presenting that I know of. And she is just absolutely... And she told me that I am delusional because I believe what I see nobody else does. That makes me the one that's delusional. We got issues with the society right now. I'm going to tell you that right now. I love my family, but I'm going to tell you right now, very few people are capable of dealing with reality. Bottom line.